Okay. Pretty much just want to go over my AMD trade. This is a recap of the trade that I took today, why I took this trade, my analysis behind it, my thesis behind it, what I was looking at, my entries, my exits, why I entered where I entered, and why I took my exit where I did. Okay, so coming into today, right? Yesterday, I took a trade right off of AMD, right? As you can see, this was a key level, a key channel resistance level. This 162.05 ended up taking the break and retest off of that, right? So what does that mean? We finally broke out of a channel. We are continuing higher. Coming into today's session, we ended up gapping very high, right? So this is on my close watch list. I'm looking for this. This is part of my pre-market plan, right? So coming into the session, I say, okay, we gap above, right? Very big. I'm looking for really a gap and go, a dip and rip, whatever you want to call it. Or if that doesn't happen, I'm looking for really this gap fill, right? We can get that. And then I'm looking for a pullback long off this 164.75. So for me, coming into today's session, right, since we were flirting with this 168.65, I was looking for really a dip and rip or gap and go off this 168.65. Once I saw that we pushed all the way down here and we weren't really going to fill this gap, I was waiting for this price to pull all the way back to 164.75 to look for a long entry off there. We never got it, and we ended up breaking back above this 168.65. So this was a good trade, a good loss in my opinion. And let's zoom in here to break this down. So right, as you can see, pre-market, we're sitting above this 168.65. I'm just looking for a gap and go. So you can see we fall under, right off the bat. We aggressively get back above, right? So now I'm just looking for buyers to step in. We never step in, right? They end up getting this sell off here, and we push price all the way back down to 166.12, right? But what do I like about this, right? We ended up getting a nice V-shaped recovery. I also like that Q's for the morning session was selling off, right, filling this gap, but there was divergence here on AMD to the upside. So I was intrigued by that. That caught my eye. So I'm keeping my focus on AMD, right? So I entered this trade at 702, right? Now, why did I enter this trade? Not only did we reclaim this level, right? We got a break, good displacement, and candle closure above this. That's what I love to see. Ended up pulling back, right? This went red to green, and I entered on this 702 candle, right? Now, why did I enter here, right? As you can see, this wick, what does that wick mean? That means price did push back down, but buyers aggressively bought this back up. So once I saw this go red to green, I took my shot. This was a really good trade, in my opinion, because I'm risking right under my 168.65, right? I always want to take my trades as close to my key levels as possible because I'm risking off that key level, right? So let's say if I enter this trade way up here, just hypothetically speaking, right? Just for an example, right? And I enter this trade up here, right? My stop loss has to be under this 168.65 because if I enter anywhere above this 168.65, my thesis is still correct unless we break under that, right? So the closer I take my trade to my key level, the tighter my risk, the tighter my stop, right? So this was a good shot here. As you can see, we ended up pulling back and I stopped out on a candle closure under my zone. So like I've mentioned before, you have to treat your key levels like mini zones, right? If you're taking trades off of higher time frame key levels, right, you have to give them room to breathe. And stocks like AMD or Nvidia, they love to squeeze, right? They love to squeeze before they run in continuation in whichever direction that we're looking to trade in. That's what I've really noticed with those two stocks. So as you can see here, right, this was my zone. I treated it as a zone. As soon as I got a candle closure under this, I got stopped out. Um, I pretty much sold right before we reversed, but it doesn't really matter because I would have got stopped out 100% on the 730 candle, and that would have been a bigger stop loss anyway. But I hope you see the visual on why I say you should treat this like a zone, right? Because later into the session, right, we ended up getting a break, getting that retest, and then push to our profit target high of day. Now, as you can see here around 8 o'clock, maybe an hour after I took this trade, what do you notice, right? We get a good break, good displacement, retest here, right? Bullish momentum candle kick in to the upside. We pull back, but as you can see, right, our level is holding, our zone is holding, and then it continues higher, right? This is how you avoid getting faked out or giving your trade just a little bit room to breathe so it can continue. So we were close, right? This did end up holding, just not in my favor, right? And that's trading, right? So this was a good loss for me. Why? My analysis was correct. I was trading with the overall trend. My trade thesis was based on higher time frame context. I was taking a trade off a key level. I took my trade, a part of my system, break and retest, good displacement. Buyer stepped in, I went long, right? My thesis was correct, as you can see here, right? The trade ended up playing out later into the session, just not when I took it, right? The probabilities were not in my favor, and that's part of trading, right? I don't control the outcome of a trade. So as you can see here, right, net P&L, negative 33, right? My profit target was pretty much this high day, looking to scale out and continue. So if that would have hit, roughly a $5,000 trade, especially with momentum being kicked in too to the upside. So this is a good shot, right? As long as if I'm correct on this trade and my win is bigger than my loss, that's what matters. This was a pretty big stop loss, right? This was a 20%. This was my max stop. Typically, I'm looking from anywhere between, maybe 10 to 12 to 15% for a stop loss. But I understand a stock like AMD, I got to give this room to breathe a little bit. But as you can see, right, ended up getting stopped out at 706. So I wasn't in this trade very long. 702, exit 706. And then we continued higher, right? Price action cleared up about maybe an hour later into the session, right? Break, retest, continuation higher. Our profit target did end up getting hit. So hope that helps. Why I took this trade, my thesis behind it, how I built my thesis around it, my entries, my exits, and so on.